dozen of them nearby. I don't think it's one and done. We shouldn't underestimate the importance of Persian pride. Now that Iran has been attacked not only by Israel, but by the United
Guys,
States,
my prediction is these
Iran will
attacks are
look
going to go
for
all day,
reprisals.
right into the
And
night.
that's largely going to
The
focus
most
on
we'll get is probably 1
U.S. troops in
hour
the region,
of no
the
strikes.
Red Sea,
These
other
people,
American
these people are
assets.
going to be on their
Iran
toes
also
all
has
day today.
cells around the world
That's my
that are in a
guess.
position to
We'll get a
launch
steady
reprisals
stream
and
of
attacks
videos
against
and
U.S.
images
interests.
all day here.
So I wouldn't think that this is going to be a one and done. It could be the beginning of a long escalation. And this whole episode was unnecessary. The U.S. was about to resume diplomacy with Iran. There was a proposal on the table that would have obviated the need for military action. Benjamin Netanyahu jumped the gun and decided to go ahead. His plan all along was to drag the United States into it. He seems to have been successful with that. Now that the U.S. has been directly involved in attacking 3 nuclear sites. So it's wishful thinking for the
I said
U.S.
it that
administration
if Trump was
to
going to
believe
did
that
it,
this
then he
is
should have kept
an
hush hush about
isolated
it.
incident,
And
that
nobody would
now
have
is the
found
time
out
for
that it
peace.
was an American bomb that hit him.
Right, well, earlier we spoke to Harlan Ullman, a political and military analyst. He is also the chairman of the Kalawan Group and a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council. And he says the U.S. strikes on Iran went against the Trump administration's own military intelligence.
Like, what are you,
I think
fucking idiot?
To be free and flexible and creative was really essential to what I wanted to make, and I didn't find a platform that did.
You do things stealthy, right?
And that there's no evidence that Iran is rumored to develop a weapon, but it certainly has done things to move in that direction. And given what Israel has done in terms of disarming much of Iran, I think the president felt that having given warnings to Iran, now was the time to act. I think in his view, he believes that there's one deft strike who's going to be able to produce a peace agreement, or at least a negotiation. This is the way Donald Trump thinks. And I'm afraid that's not going to be the case. As I said earlier this evening, I'm afraid that this is going to be the beginning and not the end of these issues. And I can almost guarantee you tomorrow, Iran will present evidence that the Fordo installation was not badly damaged, as the Americans think. And the press conference that will be given tomorrow morning, American time, with the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, will show how much damage has been done and that the Iranian program has been set back years, possibly. The fact of the matter is, I don't think anybody will really know the extent of the damage in the United States, but this leaves open the door to a great deal of potential escalation. And one of the areas of escalation that has not been mentioned is that Iran has a very powerful cyber capacity. And I would expect cyber attacks to be breaking out. They'll be done clandestinely and covertly, but the fact of the matter is they can do a huge amount of damage, and that's one area I would look to see Iran starting almost immediately. I think it's very straightforward. Nobody wanted Iran to have a nuclear weapon. The question was, how do you deal with that? Did you do that through diplomacy? And of course, Trump abrogated the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action when he became president the first time. And it seems to me that's what put us on this course, because I think that the JCPOA would have worked, was working. Having said that, the president probably decided that this was an opportunity to use American power, and I think he really believed that by attacking Fordo
according to TRT
and
World
Natanz
Now
and Isfahan, he could really set the program back and then leave it up to the Israelis to finish off what needs to be done.
Right, well, if you're just joining us, US President Donald Trump has addressed the nation from the White House, calling the strikes on Iran a success. Let's just take a listen to what he did have to say earlier.
40 strikes, 40
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
What is that percentage?
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Like
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace.
25% exactly?
If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular,
it's going to get ugly
so
today.
Many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani.
25% of their
I
missiles are getting
decided
through.
a long time ago that
ugly.
I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done.
I never thought I'd be reporting this.
And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight.
World War III would
and
ever
all
be
of
possible.
the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades.
And I do believe
hopefully we
a
will
lot
no
of things
longer
are possible.
need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so.
And I believe we're
I
at
also
World
want to
War
congratulate the chairman
III,
of the Joint Chiefs of
really
Staff,
invested or in
General Dan
and
Raisin
not
Kane,
on our soil, that's for
spectacular
sure.
general,
So.
and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
In Israel,
Remember,
all
there
over
are
Israel,
many targets left.
and quite possibly
Tonight's
an
was
American
the
base.
most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Then
Most of
where
them
was it
can
hit
be
now?
taken
a new
out
country
in a
that's
matter
not
of
even
minutes.
involved in
There's
this
no
war?
military in the world that could have
Like,
done
if we
what
hear
we did tonight.
an American base
not
in
even
Kuwait
close.
was
There's
hit.
never been a military that could do what took
the
place
fuck
just a
does that
little
mean?
while ago.
Does that mean that pissed off
Tomorrow,
Kuwait
General
as well?
Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press
because,
conference at 8
Kuwait
a.m. at
would
the
be on
Pentagon.
Iran's side, so they don't
and I
care
want
if
to
they
just
hit
thank
an
everybody,
American
and
base in Kuwait,
in
right?
particular, God, I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Do you think Trump has ever
Well,
got on
White
his
House
knees and
correspondent
prayed?
Kimberly Halkett has this
Does he
report
look
from
like a prayer
Washington,
boy?
D.C.
We are learning more about the American military's operation as it conducted strikes
Trump
on those
has never
3
said a
nuclear
prayer
sites
in his
in
life.
Iran. The United States used B-2 bombers to carry those 30,000-pound bombs known as bunker busters. We know that there were 6 that were dropped on Fordo. As well, the United States used 30 Tomahawk missiles to attack the other 2 Iranian sites. Now, this opens up the United States to the potential for retaliation by Iran. And as a result, we know that U.S. personnel in the region, in addition to the 40,000 troops positioned in the Middle East, have been briefed about the potential for strikes by Iran. As well, we know that the U.S. president has spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu following the strikes, and also reached out diplomatically to Iran to let it know that the strikes on the nuclear facilities were all the United States had planned, and the U.S. had no intention of pursuing regime change. The U.S. saying that there was only the goal of destroying the nuclear enrichment possibilities, which the U.S. considered a threat to Israel. Now, the U.S. president warning following the strikes and his address to the American public that any retaliation by Iran would be met with even greater force.
What
This is a message that will no doubt be reinforced when the Pentagon holds its briefing to share with the American public the bomb damage
Israeli
assessment.
celebrities are
That press
speaking out
conference
right now.
scheduled for
I'm sure there's a
12G
bunch.
on Sunday.
Right?
Kimberly Halkett, Al Jazeera, the White House.
Right, well, for more on what's the situation in Iran, we have Tohed Asadi, who's live for us in the Iranian capital in Tehran. Tohed, I just wanted to let you know about new information coming in that the International Atomic Energy Agency is saying that there has been no increase in off-site radiation levels reported after the US strikes on those three nuclear sites. However, what are you hearing from Iranian officials on this? Because obviously this is the #1 question that many people at home want to know.
Yes, exactly. And also we heard a similar statement from the Center for Nuclear Safety of the country, who came out in a statement to say that right now there is no danger of nuclear contamination according to the data and statistics that they have there. Also, they said that people living nearby in the areas targeted by the American strikes can rest assured that they can continue their ordinary lives. So there is no danger for them, according to this latest statistics,
Israel-born
this statement indeed that came from the Center for Nuclear Safety of the country. Also, they said that this is for the first time in history, according to this statement, that a nuclear facility is being targeted that runs a huge risk, potentially speaking. But we've got also another report from another statement, indeed, from the Atomic Energy Organization of the country, confirming these attacks and also saying that United States actually did these attacks and carried out these attacks. Also, they criticized IAEA for lack of action and even sort of quote-unquote support of these strikes that took place. This is a massive, important, critically important, I would say, development that we are witnessing, and obviously we're waiting for Iran to respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Tohed Sadi, there for that update from Iran. Of course, those US strikes hit 3 nuclear sites. But as we speak, you're looking now at live pictures. That's coming from Tel Aviv. Those are clearly residents that have probably been forced out of their residential areas. And that's because just a while ago, earlier,
and Al Jazeera
barrage, a wave
is not allowed to report in Israel.
From Iran,
they have banned Al Jazeera. So somebody is giving them the feed
here. It seems there has been one impact in Haifa, but of course details are still sketchy. However,
they went under the cloak of independent reporter.
Noor Alda, let's go back to her in Amman in Jordan. And Noor, we're just seeing these live pictures there. It looks like damage to a residential building there in Tel Aviv. I'm just looking at the live pictures here in front of me. Noor, what are you getting from what's happening on the ground in Israel?
Sarah, the Israeli army says that Iran launched 2 volleys of a total of 27 missiles, 22 in the first volley, 5 in the second. Now, the areas that were targeted were quite large within Israel, spanning from the occupied Syrian Golan to the Upper Galilee to the northern and central coastal areas. 10 separate sites were impacted either directly by missiles or by large shrapnel, and there's extensive damage in those sites, especially in the Tel Aviv area and in Haifa, where there were at least 1 or 2 impacts. The initial reports from the Israeli medical services are talking about up to 16 injuries. Now, of course, we say initial because this is still ongoing, and medical crews are still, combing through those areas where that extensive damage has been reported to make sure that they have answered and they have treated all those who may have been injured by the attack. Certainly, this is the first time, Sarah, that we've seen 2 volleys reported and coming in such successive order. Usually there are hours between each volley of missiles struck at Israel, but in this time there was less than half an hour between the first and second group of missiles launched.
And no, just looking at these pictures, when you see these residential homes have been hit, clearly people were expecting this potentially to happen, but it has disrupted many lives in Israel. And it's been really interesting to see how a lot of these missiles that have made impact in Tel Aviv have been not just residential areas, but business areas, areas
out of Israel right now,
areas that are clearly targeted because of Israeli military buildings or intelligence buildings. Quite precise. Now, the question is here, the air defense systems, has it been managing to work the way it had done earlier when Hamas was firing all those rockets from Gaza?
Well, let me just clarify that we do not know the nature of the buildings that were struck in these 2 volleys, so we're waiting to see, any inclination of what the nature of those buildings are. But clearly, these are very, very large missiles, Sarah. There's no comparison between what Iran is launching and what Hamas used to launch. And that is why the degree of success of Israel's multi-layered air defense system is very different. It was far easier to intercept those locally made rockets from Gaza than it would be of the Iranian missiles that have very different capabilities. Some of them are described to be hypersonic. And that is what we've seen in terms of damage, very extensive damage, very large radius of impact. Some buildings suffering very heavy damages just from the impact of the missile, even if they weren't targeted. We saw that very clearly in Beersheba in the south, when the Soroka hospital was quite heavily damaged from the impact of a missile that struck a sensitive site, a strategic site, as some even described it, near the hospital. So this is a very different kind of war, as we've been saying for the past 10 days. This is a country, a large country with a military that has very different kinds of capabilities and different types of missiles to launch at Israel. At the beginning of this confrontation, after Israel initiated the crisis,
at
on
least
the 13th of June, we saw
3,396
Iran
people
launch
have been injured.
different kinds of missiles, the ones that were easier to intercept. And as the day's development and this escalation was going further and further into the direction of a deterioration, we saw Iran use different weapons in its arsenal, ones that are far more potent, far more able to overcome the different layers of defense that Israel has in place. And let's remember, Israel's air defense system, in addition to what Israel has as a country, Israel is also being aided by allies in the region, specifically by the U.S. military, which gives Israel advanced warning, which participated in some instances in trying to intercept those missiles as well.
And Noor, as we're speaking, we're still seeing some of those live pictures, emergency services in Tel Aviv attending, it seems, to a residential building that looks like it's been hit. Of course, as we were saying there, not much details are still clear yet, so that's a developing story. Off the back, Noor, of these US strikes on nuclear sites in Iran, it is a Sunday, and people in Israel will have been waking up to that news.
So again,
how have they been reacting, and what precautions has the country been taking? What precautions has Israel been taking after those US strikes?
But Israel's keeping them absolutely on the down low.
Well, Israel is on a state of heightened emergency, and very early on in the morning, even before Israelis were waking up, authorities declared a closure, hermetic closure of Israeli airspace. In fact, we're hearing in the past few minutes that a cruise ship bringing back Israelis stranded.
Guys, don't you think Al Jazeera would want to talk about the death toll right now? They haven't brought up a death toll ever
because of those measures. So
in 7 days.
Measures were already in place, and Israelis were told not to leave their homes, not to go to work, because there would be no business as usual today. Israel expected Iran's initial response, at the very least, to be directed at Israel, not at anybody else, and that is why we saw Israelis going to the shelters as soon as those initial warnings were brought in. Politically speaking, all the reactions have been one of jubilation. Sarah, we heard from political figures in Israel from across the political spectrum, the opposition and the coalition, praising Donald Trump, some calling him a messenger of God. That's, of course, in addition to the Israeli Prime Minister, who issued a statement even before Donald Trump announced this decisive strike,
praising the Israeli airstrikes on nuclear sites similarly have caused no recorded release of radioactive material into the air.
Then peace later, of course.
The International Atomic Energy Agency has said.
Orwellian to the ears of peoples across the region who are watching this and wondering wondering if this deterioration is just beginning and how much their lives will be impacted. This is something that will impact peoples across the region, not just in Israel, not just in Iran, but everybody who lives in between.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. That's the update from Noor Auda in Amman on the latest strikes that we're seeing there in those live pictures in Tel Aviv. That's Israel. Right, well, Shrita Parsi is the executive vice president of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, and he says US attacks on Iran have likely guaranteed that Iran will become a nuclear power within the decade.
Neither was it existential nor imminent. There's absolutely no evidence for this. I think we have to keep in mind the reality of the situation, which is that two nuclear-equipped countries attack a non-nuclear weapon state without having gotten attacked first. Israel was not attacked by Iran. It started that war. The United States was not attacked by Iran. It started this confrontation at this point. And this will send shockwaves throughout the world because it will be very difficult for any country that feels that there is a risk for them to end up in the crosshairs of the United States of Israel to feel that they are safe without having a nuclear deterrent. So I fear that we will see proliferation, but I also think that this has more or less guaranteed that Iran will be a nuclear weapon state in 5 to 10 years from now. It appears that they already had gotten advance warnings, but I think also even short of that, when Trump said that he's going to make a decision within 2 weeks, not even the skeletons left almost. Look at that. They understood that he was trying to buy time.
That might be one
moving
missile that did that
in order to actually strike. So I think for some time they have moved those assets. Where they are is unclear at this point, and I think the most valuable thing the Iranians have is the stockpile of enriched uranium.
Chances are they heard some sirens
they continue to have
and ran to cover.
They still actually have very much a nuclear program.
In Israel, if you own a detached home,
from the Israelis
it is law that you have a hard room, it's called, almost like a bunker.
Trump has claimed.
It is by law that you have to own a hard room
ongoing
or a bunker
against Iran, and already now they're intensifying their
but I think it's just the hard room.
Iranian nuclear
so the hard room is obviously nothing can penetrate it. It's got to be built with
Studies Department at
many
the University
layers of
Tehran,
concrete,
and he joins
probably.
Us live now from the Iranian
soundproof,
capital. Mr. Fuad Azadi, how are Iranians waking up
anything
to this
from
news
penetrating?
Well. They are continuing to be shocked because until about 2 weeks ago, they thought they are going to see an agreement between Iran and the United States. They had 5 rounds of talks. Trump was speaking very positively about these talks. He was saying that they are going well. In fact, just a few hours before the start of
the saying
Israeli
goes,
attack,
old men make decisions.
Trump tweeted
and the young
that
people
the talks were going well,
get killed.
and he expected good results. We now know that was a deception operation.
Those
today,
are some serious shots
Trump,
we're seeing right now in Al Jazeera.
Statement, said that United States
That's the exact
and
same
Israel,
buildings that we just seen.
As
that
a team.
whole complex was creamed.
The people in Iran
I really hope those
that,
people ran to cover before that.
This process that they thought would result in a diplomatic solution,
and we have heard that even if you run for cover in a bunker, people are getting killed still.
Damage to Iranian infrastructure.
You don't even have cover in bunkers.
There is this rally around the
safe
flag
coverage
effect,
in a bunker,
and public opinion here is asking the government to respond with this logic.
If you run to an underground parking,
cost-free, then these attacks
that
will
building takes a hit.
And I think this latest
there's nothing saying that building can hold can stand that type of a hit. It might just collapse on the people.
That because of that public opinion pressure and because of the fact that Iranian government officials realize that there needs to be some level of cost to these type of attacks.
This is going to be a long day for people in Israel.
And since Trump is acknowledging that he's
we're not hearing about Iran taking any hits right now.
Netanyahu is in his team. Then both American and Israeli targets would be fair game for Iran in response to what happened this morning.
Okay, and Mr. Fuad-Azadi was saying that, you know, the public would like to see Iran respond, and proof of that
guys,
is
you're watching Steve Stacks live
with this missiles
on Twitch.
Tel Aviv, something it's been doing
like this content
since
and
Israel
more,
started attacking
hit the
Iran
like, hit the
about 8 or
subscribe
9
button,
days ago.
hit
But
the
the question
bell,
here is,
notification,
Israel and the US seems to be peddling this idea that Iran is much weaker now, that it doesn't have the resources it had before Israel started targeting it, and it's groups that are allied to Iran. So what options does it have?
Other stuff on my channel,
not just militarily in terms of missiles, but also
like
what other ways can it attack?
Like my music, like other political stances, reaction videos, other live streams
closing
about
the
other
Strait
stuff.
of Hormuz has been
like my
talked
pet
about
lizard or my pet
by
gecko.
some in Iran. And you know,
bring you all that
maybe
good stuff.
A bigger picture
all that good stuff.
Is that the people who inside the Iranian government establishment, the people who were advocating for diplomacy with the United States, are going to be sidelined because that policy was not a good policy. At the end of the day, you have war at this level. So I think Iranians will look at their strategy so far. They will realize that
it's been a long stream, and I'm probably going to watch this after I get off the stream as well.
The belief here is that the ultimate aim,
my
is not
eyes are
only
glued to the screen.
Change of the Iranian government,
almost
but
all day,
the break of,
watching this type of coverage.
Iran.
So whether I'm live or not, I'm still watching
advocating
Al Jazeera
of Iran,
you know, another
taking
news
the
network,
oil-rich sections of Iran out, and
filtering
sort
or
of
scanning the net, trying to get
a policy that would result in Iran being divided in 3 or 4 countries. And the U.S. Generally oppose that idea for different reasons. But it seems
but in this stream we've heard a lot of
US
stuff
policy
that I
towards
talked
Middle East
about
is taken over by Israel.
Just some stuff to touch up on here.
The
world, the amount of conflicts or wars in the world at the moment, I believe is at the most all-time high. I showed you some
and if you are an Iranian,
numbers, some verifying numbers that is true.
That you are experiencing a war
what else did we talk
for the last 10 days, and this war may result
Canada's
in your country
about the Islamic State.
Then you realize that there is
Iran
no
pretty much and how they banned them or
and this
sanctioned
would put more pressure on Iranian government officials to make sure that that policy.
But I brought up some side stories and some other interesting facts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuad-Azadi, a professor in the World Studies Department at the University of Tehran in Iran. Let's get more now from our panel. We have Mehran Kamarava, a professor of government at Georgetown University in Qatar, joining me here in the studio. We also have
Eastern
Adam Weinstein, the deputy director of the Middle East program at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. We are coming towards the end of our news program, so I just wanted to get final thoughts from the both of you
out of Toronto,
where
Ontario.
you think this is heading. What's the exit strategy here? What's the way out of this mess and this escalation that we haven't seen in decades, certainly not in our lifetime, perhaps, other than the Iraq War?
Excellent question, but I don't think anybody here has an exit strategy. Certainly Netanyahu or Trump do not have exit strategies. I think Netanyahu's objective is to see a disintegration of the Iranian government, of the Islamic Republic, and perhaps a fractioning of the Iranian state as we've come to know it. As for Donald Trump, he has already said it's over. But I think that is somewhat of a wishful thinking. I don't think it's over by any stretch of imagination.
You can't just step into a war and step out. There is none of that.
At the moment, but for you, Adam Weinstein, what do you think of the situation?
You know, I think President Trump, when he says it's over, that's delusional. And when he says that Iran either needs to choose peace or there's going to be more strikes, I mean, it's a misreading of how Iran is going to react. And unfortunately, he's tied the U.S. response to an Iranian retaliation that's almost inevitable because, as I said earlier, if they don't respond, that places the very legitimacy of their regime in question. And so it's quite unfortunate because he could have been
What do you make of this breaking news?
It is extraordinary. I think
position actually to be able to do that because of his support in Congress, and unfortunately,
see what this Iranian reporter from CNN.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adam Weinstein in LA, and of course, Mr. Mehran Kamrava here in the studio. Thank you for those final thoughts on the latest situation. While Shahram Akbarzadeh is the director of the Middle East Studies Forum at Deakin University in Australia and a senior fellow at the Middle East.
Let's see what this guy has to say here. I've seen this guy on CNN quite a bit. Not as much lately. I don't watch CNN a ton. But I do remember him. Let's see what he has to say. I don't know his nationality. I am just judging by his appearance. He looks like he might be of Iranian descent.
What do you make of this breaking news?
It is extraordinary. I think Trump has managed to do something that he, to be fair to him, had always marked out, which was he did not want Iran to have a nuclear program. But what's clear is in the last few weeks, he shifted ground on two issues. The first was he had started out in a position which was Iran can have some enrichment, just has to be monitored, things like that. He moved to what was essentially the Israeli position, which was zero enrichment. And he outlined that in the middle of about 2 weeks ago. The second is that he seemed to have lost faith that the Iranians were negotiating in earnest. And he seems to have gotten frustrated, because I think this was not his first option. His first option was a deal with the Iranians, but the maximalist condition he placed was with zero enrichment was one the Iranians didn't seem willing to go to, and I think he thought the Iranians were not negotiating earnestly. So the result is you have this extraordinary move, which almost certainly has destroyed almost all of Iran's enrichment. The question, however, is you still need diplomacy. You still need a political solution, because the Iranians can rebuild. Remember, this is a nation that has been pursuing nuclear energy for 70 years. The programs were first started under the Shah of Iran. They can rebuild. It will take them years. It will be difficult. So the best way to make sure that Iran stays non-nuclear would be now to have some kind of agreement. And President Trump seems to understand that, because the only part of that Truth Social post that's in all caps is, "Now is the time for peace." So he clearly still wants to make a deal. The Iranians don't have a lot of options, but that doesn't mean they will be ready or willing to very quickly make a deal. This is a very stubborn, nationalistic, prideful group of people, very ideological. So the key issue is now, how do they view this devastating setback? Do they say, look, let's accept finally the Israeli Trump condition, zero enrichment, or is this going to get their backs up?
I see. But it is 2 a.m. and I am going to log off. Sorry about that, but I have been going live for 5 hours and 40 minutes, folks. Possibly the longest live stream I've done. It's been a blast, and hope to see you on the next live stream. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and if you haven't already stuck around for all this, please check out the video on Twitch. It will be here for probably another week or so, maybe another month. I believe they keep it on there for. But the full video should be up on my YouTube channel in about 24 hours. Thanks again. Stacks out.